All right, let's take a look at the distributive property 5-6. Problem number 1. Here we have 4 times 8, okay? That is the array. We have 1, 2, 3, 4. 4, 4. The X stands for rows of, when we have a multiplication sentence with an array. So here we have 4 rows of 8. The number 8 is the number that is being repeated. It's being repeated 4 times. 4 rows of 8. Distributed property tells us that we can break apart this equation, this array, into 2 smaller equations. And here we have a gap split right in the middle of the array. So now, if you notice, we're splitting it in half side to side on the rows side, not the column side. So the number in each row stays the same. There's still 8. The rows changes. 4, the first factor changes. 4 times 8. My first factor is the number of rows. Instead of having 4 rows, now we have 2 rows and 2 rows. 2 rows of 8 and another 2 rows of 8. 2 rows of 8 plus another 2 rows of 8. So our sentence, 4 times 8, is also equal to 2 times 8 plus another 2 times 8. The value is still 32. 16 plus 16 equals 32, which is the product of 4 times 8. Let's try another one, okay? Here we have 3 times 5. We have 3 rows. 1, 2, 3. 3 rows of 5. Three rows of 5. That is our original multiplication sentence. Distributive property tells us that we can break apart the first factor. The first factor is 3. We're breaking apart 3 into 2 rows of 5, 2 rows of 5, and 1 row of 5. All right? 3 times 5 is the same as 2 times 5 plus another 1 times 5. 2 times 5 is 10 plus 1 times 5 is 5. Still equals 15. 3 times 5 is 15. So taking a look at this again, boys and girls, the first factor is the factor that changes. And the first factor to the equation inside each parentheses is going to equal the sum of that first factor. 2 plus 1 equals 3. Times 5 stays the same all the way across because we're not changing the 5. Multiplication is just repeated addition. We are repeating the number 5. Times 5 does not change. Just like over here, 4 times 8, times 8, times 8, times 8, it doesn't change. We still have 8 counters in each row. What changes in distributive property is the first factor. The first factor is 3. 3 rows can be split into 2 and 1. 2 and 1 looks different from 3, but the value is still the same. 2 plus 3 is still, 2 plus 1 is still 3. Okay, now let's try this again. 3 and 4 don't have an array, okay, but we can still use what they have given us to figure out what belongs in the blanks. So our original sentence, our original multiplication sentence is 6 times 8. Again, times 8. That second factor tells us the number being repeated. We are repeating the number 8 6 times. 8 stays the same. It's always going to be times 8, times 8, times 8. Okay? My first factor is 6. All right? So the sum of my first factors has to equal 6, and they do. 4 plus 2 equals 6. So 6 times 8 has been split into 2 basic facts. 4 times 8 and 2 times 8. And basic facts are just smaller equations that we're a little bit more comfortable dealing with. than the larger one. Now let's try another one. Here we have 10 times 3. And what's missing is the first factor here. Now again, my first factors together, their sum should equal the value of the first factor in the original multiplication equation, 10. So something plus 2 equals 10. Only one number can be that unknown number, 8. 8 plus 2 equals 10. And it's still times 3, times 3, times 3. Because a number being repeated does not change. It's 3 all the way across.